Hey guys, Sydney Bragwin here, and I'm going to take you guys with me today while I wash, clay, and seal this car in under an hour. So as you guys can see, this car is very dirty. So it lives outside in the elements, and here in Idaho, we have gone from 95 degrees to 55 degrees in a matter of 2 days, and it rained. So we've got all this dirty rain all over the surface of the vehicle. Obviously, wheels and tires are super dirty. So I'm gonna step up my game a little bit from my normal ordinary wash routine of doing rinseless, and we're actually gonna foam cannon this car. But before we start this wash, I'm gonna set a timer so that we can see how long this actually takes me. All right, so I'm gonna start on the wheels and tires. So super dirty, but nothing crazy. I don't feel like I need an iron remover or anything. So I'm just gonna use Brake Buster. I'm gonna get these tires nice and soaked. They've got a lot of browning. It's kind of clear they have not been washed in a while. I'm gonna go ahead and spray my inner fender wells as well with this. It's a great degreaser. It's gonna get all of that clean. And then we're gonna do the base of the wheel. All right, then we are going to grab our wheel bucket, and I'm gonna start with the tires. So I'm gonna take my Detail Factory tire brush, and we are gonna see all that gnarly, this is old dressing, UV damage, and we're just gonna get all of that scrubbed off. I always call this like tire milkshake. That is gnarly. All right, and then we're gonna find our Detail Factory wheel face brush. I like this brush because it gets in everywhere. I don't find that I generally don't even have to go back on wheels like this with an extra brush. All right, so we're gonna get those all scrubbed. And I'm gonna do all 4 wheels and then I'll rinse them. I'm gonna scooch back here. Hit the Brake Buster again. Another nice thing about Brake Buster is it can sit on these surfaces and you don't really have to worry about it causing any damage or leaving any spots like that. Now, obviously I'm washing inside. So if you're out in the sun, maybe you don't want to let these Brake Buster and that dry on the surface. But since we're working inside, I'm just going to knock out all 4 wheels at one time. If I was outside in the sun, maybe I would rinse after each wheel. So while I clean these wheels, let's talk about the age-old debate about do you wash wheels before or after the wash? So I think it's one of those things that I think it's whatever you're comfortable with, and there's probably not a wrong answer, but I always like to start with the wheels first. Just mainly because then it also gives, especially like when we're doing like we are today, where we're just doing a wash on this vehicle, we're not necessarily doing a detail. It's nice because it gives the tires time to dry before you dress them. So just my personal preference, I always start with the wheels and tires first. To me, it seems backwards to do it the other way, but honestly, it is one of those things that you can do it whichever way you are most comfortable with, and I don't think there's a wrong way there. All right, wow, there is all sorts of stuff up in here. All right, last wheel. All right, so there's our wheels and tires. I'm gonna grab my pressure washer and I'm gonna give these a rinse. So I'm gonna start by rinsing all the Brake Buster from our fender wells. Okay, now I'm going to pre-rinse the vehicle with the pressure washer. Some people will just go ahead and foam right over this, and that's probably okay too, but just because there is so much surface dirt, I'm just gonna run over the vehicle really fast with a quick rinse, and then we'll go straight to our foam cannon. I just remembered that my phone's up here, so I'm gonna remove this before I pressure wash the car, but we are at 9 minutes and 18 seconds. I'm just gonna set this over here. Okay, so now that we have rinsed the car, we are gonna go grab our foam cannon, which we are going to use Frostbite from PNS. All right, we're gonna load the foam can in there. And I'm gonna pull this guy These off-road tires, they like to hold on to our hose. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my contact wash. So I've got my bucket ready of that. Okay, so now let's head back over to our wash bucket, and I'm going to give it a little dunkaroo here. And now I'm just going to start just the contact wash, starting top down. Now, obviously I don't have any ladders or anything here, so we'll have to get the roof in a little bit. Ooh, not as tall as this thing. All right, so super easy. So luckily in this case, most of our dirt did kind of loosen and rinse off. So I don't need to be super worried about contaminating my wash bucket with too much debris. I mean, it's really just dirt and rain dirt. So it should be good. So we'll go section by section. I always like to save the bottom for the end because that's generally where the road, what do they call that? Traffic film. So Frostbite is actually it's a little bit stronger of a soap. So I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a stripping soap, but it is a little bit higher pH. So it's going to do a good job at kind of, you know, breaking away the contamination, getting the dirt to loosen up. So it is a safe enough soap to use every day, every week if you want. But for me personally, I like to just use it, you know, once a month as kind of a reset soap, if you will. So it does have a little kick in the cleaning power for sure. So I still like to use soaps like Pearl or Radiance for more maintenance washes. But when I want to kind of strip like all the road grime, and in Boise, we've had chip sealing this summer, which is just gnarly on the cars. It leaves a lot of tar and gross dust. And so I like to do Frostbite when we've got lots of contaminants and things like that. So, but it is, it is totally safe to use as your weekly wash for sure. The thing I like about this though, is you guys probably can't see this, but there's actually like a lot of bugs on the back of this, and Frostbite is so good that literally I almost don't even need like a bug remover. Like that just removed them all, which is so great. I love that. So especially like if I've been on a road trip or something like that where I do have a lot of bugs on the front, I really like to use Frostbite because it kind of attacks all of those much better. All right. Another great feature of this foam is it stays wet. It doesn't dry on the surface. So that is kind of nice. You have a little bit extra working time where, you know, some soaps that I've used in the past as a foaming soap will, you know, dry on the surface. They dry out too fast. It's almost more like a shaving cream foam type that just tends to evaporate all the moisture in it. And it, you know, kind of gets too dry by the time you're ready to rinse it. So with this, I can literally wash the entire car before I have to rinse it. Now, again, I always like to address if you're working outside, you have to do things a little bit different, right? So you would maybe wash half the car, rinse it, you know, keep it wet, keep it rinsed. If we were working outside in the sun and if it was warm, we would not want to leave the soap on the surface, just because it is more of a stripping soap. You could, you know, have it dry on the surface. So if you're working outside, work half car at a time. Since we're inside, I'm going to wash this entire vehicle and then rinse it. All right, I'm going to have to cheat. I'm going to have to use the side steps on this to be able to get the roof. All right, so now I'm ready to put my pressure washer back together because we're ready to rinse. So I've got to find all my parts that I left laying around, and my hands are super slippery because of the soap. All right, so we've got our wand, and I need my tip back. We're gonna do that. Let's see. Very slippery. Okay, so now we're gonna start rinsing, except this thing doesn't wanna come with me. rinse our wheels again because we got some frostbite on them. Okay, so you do want to make sure that you rinse your wheels again because I obviously hit them with frostbite. So as you notice, I'm rinsing all the wheels as I go by them as well. All right, so here's the beauty in this process is we do not even have to dry the car now. So we're gonna do, what we've done is the wash, clay, seal, but we've done the wash portion. So now I'm gonna start with the clay and seal. So for that, I'm going to use Bead Maker. Bead Maker is a paint protectant sealant. It has a little bit of SiO2 in it, but the most important thing is it has a lot of lubrication in it. So it is going to be a great clay lube for us, and it's also going to remove the contamination, and it will actually start cross-linking with the paint since it's wet and everything. Now for this process, I am gonna get my clay scrubber wet. It doesn't really matter that it has soap on it. All of that will come off. So I just want it a little bit wet. So starting here, I always start on the glass. The glass, believe it or not, gets a lot of contamination on it. So this is going to get the contamination off, which is going to help it stay cleaner longer. It's also going to give it a little bit of the, beading properties from Bead Maker, which is so nice. So if you can hear that, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but so there is quite a bit of contamination on this car. So when we start this process, it kind of sounds like sandpaper. You hear like some gritty sounds. And when the sound disappears, and you can actually feel it through the clay scrubber, you can feel when it gets nice and smooth and you stop hearing that, kind of sandpaper noise. And that is just the contamination. So once that contamination is removed, you're ready to move on to your next area. So it's very, this is a really user-friendly, like for feedback of when you stop doing your claying. So like I mentioned, we are leaving the water on the surface for this process. Just one, there's no need to dry in between because we're using the water mixed with the Bead Maker as our lubricant. So this is really, it's just removing a step that's going to save you time, and we are essentially saving so much time on doing the claying process. So it's great. I love this. So this is good for cars that are not coated. It's good for cars that are coated. I do this as my annual maintenance on all of my ceramic coatings. It's kind of like going to the dentist. You wash it every day, and the stuff comes off your teeth, but you have to go to the dentist every 6 months to get the contamination off that is making you think your teeth are not clean when you brush them yourself. So this is what this is. This is just manually removing the contamination that does not come off with normal washing. All right, let's do a time check. So it looks like I'm at 28 minutes and 18 seconds. So I'm still doing really good. We are gonna keep claying. Now we're gonna move down the sides. So another thing I love about this process is it really only adds like 10 minutes total to your whole wash because you're already doing all of those other steps. So this is just getting you that whole next level in care in less than 10 minutes. So it's great. We'll move up here, and I do all the glass. So even the side windows, because those, gather contamination as well. And then you get the benefit of the rain repellency from the Bead Maker. So I'm probably using 6, 7, 8 sprays per panel. I definitely don't skimp on the Bead Maker. I want the extra lubricity in there. I want it to cross-link with the paint. So I definitely do more than a couple sprays. So if you're putting Bead Maker on dry, that's where we say only use a couple sprays. But for this, you can be loving with it. All right, definitely more contamination up front. And these clay scrubbers are great because you can tell when you hit the areas that have more than others. So especially like these lower thirds, they're always going to be more contaminated because they're getting either the salt or the road sand, or like I said, we've had chip sealing. So there's all sorts of chemicals and who knows what in all that sand and gravel that they lay down, and it just sticks to the vehicles. Now, I'm sure some people are wondering, we're claying, are we not scratching the heck out of this paint, right? And the answer is no, because this is a synthetic clay. So it's not like traditional clay. So if you're using a clay bar, you're not gonna wanna do this. But the synthetic clay is a fine grade. So it's actually not marring the surface. So the bead maker is keeping the surface safe. So all it's doing is just removing that contamination, but it's not marring the surface. Now, if you have a car, like say down here, there was a bunch of, you know, gravel and stuff stuck and, you know, really heavy contamination, then you would want to pull out a traditional clay bar. But for most vehicles, this is going to be perfectly adequate to keep it maintained. But obviously in cases where you have true contamination, you may still need to grab out a real clay bar, but this does it does an amazing amount of work for sure. So the back is obviously the place where it grabs the most contamination. So if you've ever pulled up behind an SUV at a stoplight and you notice where they have like all the whiskering outside the license plate and things like that, that is because there's so much contamination that when they do go through the car wash, it actually just doesn't wash off. So that's why you see all those marks. And when you do a process like this, it removes all that contamination so that when they go through the car wash, it does actually get clean. So this is a really important step, and definitely the rear ends, I think just because everything's kind of, it's getting the exhaust fumes, all that kind of stuff. So this is a really important process for the back for sure. Okay, let's talk about how often you should do this. I would say like every 6 months. So I have heard people say, do they need to do this every time? No, you absolutely don't need to do it every time. So the whole point of this is to be removing that contamination, and contamination obviously takes time to build up. So really, honestly, on a coated car, non-coated car, you really don't need to do this process more than like every, you know, 3 or 6 months, unless you drive a lot of miles and you live in a rough place, you might want to do it. But absolutely, this is not necessary to do it all the time. So just showing you how you can do, you know, exterior details, ceramic coating maintenance really quickly and efficiently, and just leaves behind such a nice finish, which you guys are going to see shortly when we dry it. So 6 months, I kind of tell my customers like, you know, 1,000 miles a month. So once the car's driven about 6,000 miles, this is a great process to do. So if you have somebody that it's not a daily driver, that, you know, they've only put 1,000 or 2,000 miles on it in 6 months, you kind of gauge it that way. So the every 6 months would be for daily drivers. Or if you drive a lot of miles, if you travel for work or something like that, or live in a really, you know, contaminated area, you could certainly do it more often. So like this roof specifically does not have very much clear coat on it. So I can see that it's very flat. The good news is there's not a lot of contamination up here, but there's not a lot of clear coat either. So it's not very slick. So I probably will honestly just bead maker this roof, because we want to put down the protection, but I don't think at this point the clay is probably, it's not sliding across it real nice. So I'm going to do the sunroof, but I probably will not clay the roof because it really doesn't have any clear coat on it. It's very flat. So we are just gonna spray the top down before we dry it with bead maker. I'll come and do that other side of the sunroof. Okay, so now we are ready to dry. Let's do a time check real quick. It's signed in here, 37 minutes, 48 seconds. We are doing great. All right, so now, actually I'm gonna, since the store's open, I'm gonna go ahead and just start drying up here. And I do like to do this because the drying towel, after it's wet, actually dries a little bit better. So I always start on the windshield first because it gets enough water on my drying towel so that it easily dries the rest of the vehicle. Okay, so we got that. Now, again, the lovely part of working inside is we don't have to worry about the temperature, so we can kind of work on the whole car at one time. Again, if you're outside, you're obviously going to want to work in, you know, do a panel by panel, especially when you get to that sealant, the clay and seal, because the bead maker will start setting up in the sun. So if you are outside, do one panel at a time and then dry it immediately. even if you do dry panel by panel, you're not really adding a ton of time. It's just breaking up the way your time is, but you're still gonna do it in the same amount of time. And the nice thing too is now the bead maker, now in this case, is acting as our drying aid, that like drying this could not be any easier. As you guys can see, it's literally one time over and it's totally dry. You could also, at this point, you could totally use an eagle blower. I don't prefer to do it that method just because, again, you don't want that sealant to dry too fast, but you totally could if you needed to. Okay, so we're gonna get this front end dry, and then up there on the hood where I can't reach, it got a little bit drier than I like, so this is gonna be really easy to remedy. All I'm gonna do is grab the bead maker, give it one more little spritz, and it's gonna fix our issue there. Because it's not totally dry and not totally cured, it's easy to just kind of put it on top of itself. Oh my goodness, I'm just not that tall. And so that works just fine. Okay, I'll lay that right there, jump up here, get the roof dry. All right, so last thing I need to do is just grab up here along this spoiler. I think we can say that's like totally done, right? So let's check our time. We are at 45 minutes and 19 seconds. So pretty impressive. So if you guys look at it, you know, it's super shiny. We got all the dirt off. It's very, very slick to the touch. I know you can't really see this, but when you run your hand across it, it's very slick. Very shiny. It looks like I just polished it, which is so nice. And like I mentioned, one of the biggest benefits of this is that it removes the contamination. Now the car is going to, you know, it's going to shine through, it's going to stay cleaner longer, and it's going to be easier to clean on the back end. So looks amazing. I love this process. Now I'm going to give you the extra 5-minute tip you can actually charge like $100 for. So what we are going to do is we are going to use Defender. So this is our true SiO2 paint sealant. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on. You want to wait about 30 minutes to 90 minutes. We're going to put this right on top of the bead maker. So again, you guys think I'm crazy here, but stay with me. So what happens in the same way that bead maker, or the same way that Defender soaks into ceramic coatings, this is going to work the same way on bead maker. So as we know, bead maker has a cure time. So it's anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. And so what we want to do is we want to get the Defender on the surface before the bead maker is cured. And what's going to happen is this is going to soak into the bead maker just like it does a ceramic. If we do it in that 30 to 90 minute window, we're going to get the maximum benefits of both the bead maker and the Defender, because this is going to soak into the bead maker, almost like locked together, and give you an extended time on your protection. So this is a great upsell for a customer. You know, you can tell them that you're taking their protection from 3 months to 12 months. You will for sure get a solid 12 months or 12,000 miles out of this. And it literally takes you 5 minutes to put it on. So great. So some will ask, why wouldn't you use Defender as your clay lube? And the answer is because Defender does not have enough lubricants in it. So you're not gonna wanna do that. You will actually scratch the paint. Defender works better when applied to a dry surface. So we're gonna use the dry application, whereas bead maker actually works better when applied to a wet surface. So still using the 2-towel method, we are just gonna put this right on every surface that we did. It's gonna be super easy, and literally like going around the whole car takes, you know, 5 minutes, and you're gonna charge $100. Now, sometimes I don't charge for this, because if I have a customer, especially like ceramic maintenance, I always add this just because it's topping up the ceramic, which is nice for the customer. But sometimes I do this on regular cars that I'm just doing a detail on. If they're a regular customer and I know that they're gonna come to my shop often, and they always stay on schedule, honestly, I just do this upgrade for them for free. And I let them know, hey, you know, I threw in the extra sealant today for you. I don't necessarily say free, but I say I threw this in, I did this for you. But in all reality, I'm kind of doing it for myself, because when that car comes back, for sure, in 6 months or a year, this car is going to be so crazy easy to wash. And that process that I just did, it's just going to be even easier. So it's kind of like, you know, it's so efficient that it's just going to make my job easier when that car comes back. So it's also a nice upgrade that you can feel like you can throw in for your customer for value, because it provides a lot of value, but it's almost little to no effort on your part. So super easy. You know, what I say is we all go through and, you know, kind of do like a final wipe down, a final check after we do any kind of wash or service. So this is just kind of, it's taking place of my final check as well. And it's so easy. So the way these two products work together is just really, really great. And because of the technology in here where Defender soaks in, it is reaching that, you know, level of the paint that it's still bonding with the paint through the bead maker. And I've been doing this process for probably 2 years now, because I was in the development of Defender as well, and so started doing this. And the way these cars come back, like, you can tell the difference. It's very apparent which cars I've put Defender on and which ones I haven't. Now, if you haven't noticed, I'm putting it on the glass too. So super, super great glass sealer. You know, it's gonna go on the glass, it's not gonna streak. It does such a great job. And then they've got those benefits of the extreme hydrophobics on the glass. So I put it on everything. The chrome, the windows, the paint. It's really great on wheels, really, really great on wheels. There's really not a surface on the exterior that you can't put this on other than obviously tires. All right, guys, so we are done. So doing our time check, we are at 52 minutes and 54 seconds. So no real detail is done until we've dressed the tires. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, but we're gonna add 3 minutes for doing that, right? It's not gonna take me too long. So that puts us at exactly 55 minutes, 56, which is a great time for doing a whole wash clay seal on this vehicle. We've knocked it out of the park. It looks amazing. So that is how you do a wash clay seal in under an hour. And I hope this helped you guys learn. Let us know in the comments what you think, if you've used this process before, and we'll catch you on the next one.